Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. Welcome to my big review for Power Rangers Dino Fury episodes 9, 10, and 11, which have just gone up on Netflix. First of all, thank you to those of you that sort of voted in the previous video on whether I should do one big video or individuals. It was almost even, so I kind of decided to do a best of both worlds. So what I'm going to do now is, as of right now, this version of me has only seen episode 8. I'm going to review it as if that's the only episode I've watched, and then I'm going to pause this and go watch 9, and so forth. So I'm going to keep all my thoughts self-contained since the episodes seem to be a little bit self-contained, but then you guys don't have a chance of missing any of the videos, because, you know, sometimes when you upload multiple times a day, YouTube doesn't want it to show you to them, doesn't want you to see them all or something, so I guess you have to climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications from my video. Anyway, let's talk about episode 8, Cut Off. And this was basically a fillery episode. I thought it was a fairly solid one, though. So, if you watch the preview clip, we had that whole thing with Void Knight and Mucus putting up a balloon in the air that's going to cut off basically all the Rangers' tech, and all tech communications, period. Not, I guess, sort of all, not all electricity, because otherwise all these shoes would have been out. That'll make sense in a second. But all communications, period. Even cell phones, because it happens in the city, too. And the context for that clip happens pretty early on, because the Rangers are camping. We kind of just get to see more about that. And it's funny, because in the clip, one of the main things I talked about was like, well, everyone looks like they're dressed for camping except for Amelia, who's just wearing a hat. And then when I was editing it, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot Ollie was wearing this really weird jacket. And it turns out that's the key to the whole episode, was that weird jacket. I mean, I thought it was just what the kids are wearing today. I don't know what these street youths wear, or in this case, woods youths. But it turns out Ollie is Tom Haverford when he goes camping, and he has all these gadgets and stuff to make the experience better, and the Rangers are kind of making fun of him for trying to make camping easier. And then when the balloon goes up, he's like, okay, I can make a gadget out of all this because my shoes have power in them, and we can bring the balloon down, but the Rangers want to walk back to the city. Now, I might have missed the line, and in retrospect, I should have went back and rewound this. But I don't remember if they mentioned, can they not morph? I guess they have to get the morphers to wirelessly show up to them, but I'm like, why don't you just morph and break the balloon? But regardless, that was the first thing I thought of. I'm like, just break the balloon. And that's what Ollie wanted to do, and I wasn't sure where this episode was going, to be honest. I thought it was going to be a enjoy nature without tech message, but it wound up being, y'all should have listened to Ollie, because they walk into a big circle like it's the Blair Witch Project, and Zeto's like, I'm so scared! And they end up back there in 4 minutes, and they actually help Ollie make his spear thing, and they break the balloon and cut off communications. Now, back in the city, we discovered it kind of affects all of their phones, like I mentioned, because there's a Jay and Jayborg scene. And I wanted to talk about it because I actually kind of thought it was funny. I thought it was one of the funnier ones, because Jane's teaching Jayborg about fountains, like wishing fountains, and he's like, I wished for Angela a heart, and Pam to gain courage, and for Kelly a brain. She's like, now Jayborg, put it in and say your wish. And she puts it in and she says, say my wish, or something like that, which I thought was funny. And then when they call the Ranger hotline, she's like, she makes the beep boop beep boop beep noise for the phone, which I thought was funny. And then there's like a payphone there, and first of all, this is not really worth discussing, but I was curious, like, was that there and they wrote this bit around it, or did they put a payphone there on that location for this bit? I just wanted to know that. But regardless, it was the thing I thought was funny about that was they have this swelling music like, oh, salvation, she's gonna be able to call the hotline, but it doesn't work either. But anyway, the reason Void Knight's doing this communication thing was being proactive. He has acne, but that's why he wears the mask. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, well, in the clip, I was curious, like, okay, is he doing this, or is he doing this because something that happened in the episode, or is he doing it to be proactive? And it turns out it was a proactive, fairly smart villain plan, because since the Rangers were out of commission for a little while, he was able to gather a handful of Sporks without them stopping him. But of course they show up to stop the Sporks of the week. They make a ton of chicken puns at this guy. The 3 Rangers go up in the mech first, and then Green and Black fight on the ground. They fight Void Knight a little bit. We get some original sort of Ryusoulger armament footage, which is kind of cool, and then they do 5 Knights to destroy it. But Void Knight was ultimately kind of successful. I'm surprised the Rangers didn't talk about that. Like, I wonder how many he got, because they stopped them from getting the Sporks of the day, but he got at least 3 Sporks, and then he's like, mwahaha, I have a plan that'll really throw them off, which, again, I haven't watched episode 9 yet, but based on the clip, I'm going to assume it's waking up Slytherin, or Slither, or Weisel, which I'm a little bit disappointed by. We'll see when I go watch episode 9 in 3 seconds here, but I was hoping that he was going to be kind of an independent thing. Maybe he will be later. We'll have to see. But like, that was the most plot that happened, was Void Knight managed to succeed in powering up his machine more by sidelining the Rangers. He's going to do something in the next episode, and then the Rangers go back to camping, and they do kind of a physical comedy bit. But It wasn't the greatest episode, but I found it to be entertaining. Like, I was kind of taken by surprise by the message, or not, it wasn't even a message, it was just entertaining. Actually, that's a great thing, because I've said that for the past decade. I'm like, you know, Power Rangers, sometimes it's okay to just have fun. You don't always have to teach something. And I guess the message was they should have listened to Ollie, but it wasn't like a preachy message. And again, starting the episode, I thought we were in for a preachy, like, you know, oh, too much technology these days, let's appreciate nature, and it wound up being the opposite. And it had some entertaining moments, some cheesy and cringe moments as per usual, but I still thought it was enjoyable and had some funny moments within it. And, you know, even though there wasn't a huge amount going on plot-wise, there still was something that happened, you know, because you have kind of most of the Ranger stuff being fillery, but the Void Knight stuff did further his plan and plot. So I would give this episode a 3 out of 5. I thought it was solid. Again, mostly fillery. We'll see how the other two are. You know, watching this one though, seeing how it's more fillery, I'm going to be curious to see how episode 11 ends as a mid-season finale, just because 8 did work solid as a mid-season finale in terms of just the plot and the cliffhanger, but we'll have to see. Look forward to seeing Dawson 22 minutes from now with episode 9. Alright, it is Dawson 20 minutes from now. Really hate that Dawson from 20 minutes ago. That guy's the worst. So, episode 10. This was a pretty solid one. This was the introduction of Slither that we got the preview clip for, and I'm really glad we got that preview clip in the way we did, actually, because in this episode we actually get to see the process behind them planning this Wrath Con. In case you didn't see the preview clip, that brilliant joke's for you. But anyway, we get to see them plan it, so we know the infiltration is happening. Whereas in the preview clip, it was actually kind of a nice surprise because I had like no context. You know, I didn't know if episode 9 was going to lead into this or not. I'm like, who is this Katie knockoff lady? And then she ends up being Slither. So it was kind of a nice surprise. So I kind of got the best of both worlds, Hannah Montana style, where I got to see the planning when I watched the episode and I got to see the surprise when I watched the clip. But that's kind of what happened, is Zato sending yet another message to Con, basically the same one as last time. And then he sends one at the end. It's like, dude, they're leaving you on red. Let it go. He leaves another message, and then Solon brings him dog food because he's trying to recreate Ravkanian recipes, and she ends up bringing him dog food, which is actually an important plot point later, believe it or not. But we do get a follow-up from last week, wow, I'm so used to saying stuff like that. It's just like how I call comics episodes because I'm used to reviewing episodes so much. Anyway, from 20 minutes ago, Void Knight is making a new robot, and I guess people were right about Slither being a robot. You know, some people speculated on that in the preview clip because I talked about how I wanted him to be kind of a rival Sporix, and then people were like, well, he's got the same robo designs as Boom Tower, but that didn't necessarily mean anything to me, just because there's been so many times in Ranger history that they've had symbols that correspond to Sentai villains and factions that we don't do anything with. And like I said, I was kind of hoping that it was going to end up being a Sporix that awakened and was kind of a Void Knight rival. But this was a smart plan, and that's something I have liked about both of these episodes, is that Void Knight was very smart. I mean, he wound up winning last week in a way because he got some Sporix, and then this week that was actually a really clever plan and a clever use of it, and it was just clever in general. So I do like that part. And there is an aspect later when Slytherin gets fake destroyed because he grows up into like a copy fake monster of today's one episode ago's monster, and he loses his memory. At first I was like, oh, that's how they're gonna explain where he doesn't know where the base is. But then I remember Void Knight's been in the base too, but it's just like protected. But I'm like, again, honestly, is that going to stop them? Like, I mentioned that earlier in the reviews of these in the early episodes. I'm like, don't they know where the base is? Why don't they go in? And people are like, oh, it's protected. I'm like, but they're villains. They're not going to be like, I'm going to break into someone's house. Oh, it's locked. Damn, I guess we're not breaking in. That's not how crime works. What was I talking about? Oh, yes. So Slytherin basically is spying on Zato when he's sending the message, so that's where he gets the idea to pose as this Ravkanian. It's really funny because, like, I feel like Slither just couldn't stop from being himself, which is why his outfit's so extra, but at the same time, the outfit in his disguise also looks like sort of the futures we always have in TV, at least back in the day. You know, always when they would go the year 2000 forward, fashion would always get so weird, like Back to the Future, and that's what it feels like. But Zato's instantly trusting because she says that she can destroy Sporix beasts, and there's some interesting stuff here because Zato trusting her so fast makes 100% sense to me because I think he's just so desperate for connection from his home. But Solon was very smart to mistrust. I wish the other Rangers would have got on board with that. that because they don't necessarily have a reason to be so trusting. I mean, Zato doesn't either, other than the fact that he's desperate, but I think you know what I mean. Although I guess they're just kind of following Zato's lead, but I wish there was a little bit something with that there. However, even though I know she's lying about the destruction of Sporix Beast, I did find some of the comments to be like, oh, that's impossible. I'm like, dude, it's been like a million, bazillion, 65 million years. So even setting aside that she's lying, I'm willing to bet that there's some things changed. Like, that's a long time. Our 65 million years ago technology was dinosaurs eating sticks. So, I mean, they probably ascended to like that ethereal race of like bubble thoughts from Futurama when they went so far in the future. No, that wasn't. That was the episode where Bender, the robot race evolved, and they evolved into like these beyond beings of, I don't know I'm talking about Futurama, but what I'm saying is, I think that when we do meet Rapcons, it's more than possible their technology is like balls nuts, just because if they were this advanced 65 million years ago, imagine what they are now. I kind of went on a tangent there. Anyway, so then we get the preview clip stuff. As I expected in the preview clip, Void Knight does cause that distraction so that Slither can steal the Sporix Beast. Solon catches him and takes her outside the base, and that's where the communicator came from. There was a communicator in the preview clip, and I was like, wait a minute, did they give that to her and she tossed it aside, or was it Solon's? I couldn't remember if Solon wore one, but it was Solon's, and that's why Zato became suspicious when they go to the Sporix Beast, and he reads her with his gaze into the future, that's so Raven stuff, and finds out who she is. And then he transports him out of the base, and the other Rangers fight him, and he's actually pretty entertaining. Like, I don't know why, I don't remember this being from Soldier. I try to block out a lot of Weisel from Soldier, but him, like, announcing all of his moves was kind of annoying at first, but I found it really funny when he says, "Noble sacrifice," and he throws a henchman into the Rangers. But then after they sort of defeat him on the ground, that's when, like I said, he reveals that he can sort of copy monsters that they fought before, and he grows up big, and they destroy him, but then he loses his memory. And then when he loses his memory, like I said, Mucus is there and says, oh, you're nice and you're my best friend. And I'm curious to see it. We're about to watch episode 11, so this is what's kind of funny about this review, is like in 3 seconds my theory could be squashed. But I'm curious to see if Mucus maybe keeps him a secret from Void Knight and just pretends that he's been destroyed, because Weisels and Creon are like best friends in caricature. Oh, it's too many Dino series, guys. They're best friends in that show, so if they want to do something with that, I actually think it would be interesting if Mucus keeps this monster a secret, or this robot monster a secret. We'll have to see. Like, again, this theory could be blown in literally just a couple of minutes when I go watch the next episode, but I think that would be something potentially interesting. And then, like I mentioned, Zato contacts them again, which is clearly going to lead to the Gold Ranger and whatnot. But I thought this was a pretty good episode. I really liked the smart plot by the villain. I thought this was a really great introduction for Slither's character. Like, it was just kind of a cool way to intro him, with him infiltrating the base and with a smart plan and showing off his abilities. I actually kind of hope he uses that Arla form again, because the Katie Sackhoff knockoff actress actually did a really good job, and I kind of liked her performance. But I liked this episode a little more than the last one. I would say I give it a 4. There was some Jane and Jayborg stuff with like a weird cat thing that made her think she was a cat, which I found mostly annoying. But, and it kind of got in the way of the episode, but I did find the one bit at the beginning when they're filming this video and she's talking about cats, and she's like talking about all the things about cat, and she's like, but they're messy and not worth it. I thought that was pretty funny, and the delivery was good. I wanted to mention that. But let's go ahead and now fast forward to the future for another Dawsome 20 minutes from now. That guy's beard will probably be even longer, and we'll review episode 11. It's Dawson from another 20 minutes from now. Things have gotten crazy. I found the most apocalyptic clothes I could find, a leather jacket, and my hat's backwards. The Sentai purists of attack once they found out Amelia debuted the new armor, instead of sticking to the Japanese original, which is superior because it's in Japanese. I'm just kidding. I don't know, I just felt like doing this bit, but I'm gonna hurry up and record this because it's like warm in here, it's summer, and I'm wearing a leather jacket. So, this was episode 11, the last one of the new batch of episodes so far. And it was actually a pretty good episode. I was surprised. It definitely seemed like it was going to be the most fillery of the bunch, and it had some fillery aspects, but it also was the debut of our Dime Volcano, the Blaze, was it the Blaze T-Rex Megazord, or the T-Rex Blaze Megazord, the Blaze Dimetrozord, and all that stuff. And it was a really good surprise. So, if you remember from the preview clip, we had Pop, Amelia's grandfather, investigating this mansion, and we kind of open up on him investigating it, and it's really funny because, as I mentioned in the preview clip, the mansion doesn't look all that haunted from the outside. It just looks like a country club, and then like inside, it just looks like they found a regular looking room and just tried to put a bunch of stuff all over to make it look haunted and messy. But he encounters some mysterious moaning there, and then that's when he shows up at Buzz Blast. Amelia's already on the hunt for like a ghost story. It's funny because she's reading like Ghost Monthly or whatever, and Javi's like, oh, let me guess, reading Ghost Monthly again? I'm like, what gave it away? The giant magazine that says Ghost Monthly really big on it? Scranton Paper Company, Dunder Mifflin, apologizes to valued client. Some companies still know how business is done. That's when he comes in and gives her a ghost story, which is this, you know, ghost story at not Hillhurst, and he's going to fix Jane's air conditioning, and that kind of comes into play later as just a bit. But she goes to the mansion, and the Sporix Beast is there, and she wraps her up, or he wraps her up, I don't remember, the monster wraps her up. And it was actually pretty cool, because Amelia was really competent. Like, she was all trapped, and normally she'd be like, oh no, you got me, but she was like knocking the monster over with a bookshelf, and doing flips, and fighting, and the other ranger showed up to save her, but she was pretty competent on her own, which was actually pretty cool to see. But this monster's bit is, in addition to wrapping people, is he changes people's emotions. So he changes Chase to be super over emotional, and he changes Amelia to be super angry. And there was some little bit annoying bits with that, but there was also some funny stuff in it. I think my favorite bit to come out of it was when, because Chase would just get like overly emotional at anything, and he was like, we're just so good at posing after they morphed, which I thought was really funny. But Chase and Amelia, did I call him Chase like a million times? What is wrong with me? God. Javi and Amelia go back to work, and it's funny that like they're the only ones that have to go back to work. I'm like, I know that nobody else works there that I remember. Does Zeta work there now? I don't remember. But I'm like, regardless if anybody else works there, you should send somebody there to watch them, because one of them's over emotional and the other one's super angry. But Amelia didn't actually seem, I mean, she blew up at Pop Pop later, but she didn't seem as angry as I thought she was going to be. And there's kind of a funny bit with Chase. I'm not even doing it on purpose. With Javi, like, getting hot chocolate, and she's like, oh, it's kind of bitter. For a split second, I thought he accidentally got coffee, but then he gets a bunch of marshmallows in it, and there was just some kind of endearing stuff there. But she gets into a fight with Pop Pop because she lost the keys at the place, and it kind of turns into like a, you know, you won't let me grow up thing, and he's like, but why are you mad at me? I'm just trying to protect you, not to mention you stole my keys. Goes to find the keys, and then she needs to figure out a way to get him back to him without tipping off the fact that she's a ranger. And when he goes back to the mansion, he finds the Blaze Dino key, which is what the monster was searching for, because we find out that that's what Void Knight sent the monster there for, was the Blaze Dino key. And she shows up as Amelia, sort of, not as Amelia. Amelia shows up as a ranger, sort of disguising her voice. It reminded me of the end scene of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where he's like, thank you for your bravery. Like, that was the type of voice he was using, which I thought was really funny. It also reminded me, just everything Spider-Man, of the voice disguise mode in Homecoming. But anyway, she kind of got a little bit of insight into him, and, you know, what I liked about this message, again, was in terms of Amelia and Pop Pop's conflict, is it didn't feel like the show was telling you, like, this is the POV, this is the lesson you're supposed to learn. I felt like they had us understand both Amelia and Pop Pop's points, but that's not even the most important part. There was two important revelations in this episode that came out of this filler thing before we even got to a new Zord debut. One of which was at the very beginning, Pop Pop was discussing that he worked at Area 62, which as we know is Void Knight's base. And then later he talks about, like, I'm so protective of Amelia because I looked after her and raised her after her parents disappeared under mysterious circumstances. So I think that's really interesting. I'm fairly certain it's going to come back later. Definitely something unexpected, and some unexpected, like, huge nuggets of information that were put into this episode that seemingly was kind of a filler outside of the debut of the Zord and stuff. So I actually have a theory video about that I'm going to do tomorrow, so I'm going to save it for that. But I think that was really interesting. But anyway, she gets the Blaze Dino key, and all the other Rangers have been moodified by this guy. So they're all in different moods, so she's the only one left standing. And so she's the one that debuts the Blaze armor, which was really cool and unexpected, because in Resoldier, it was obviously Red that debuted it. He debuted most of the armors, so this was original footage, and I really liked that. I thought it was really unexpected and cool, and like, not only was it kind of nice to have a female Ranger get that debut, but whenever you deviate from the Sentai and ignore what they did, you get an automatic plus from me. So we get to see her debut the armor, and then she debuts the Zord. I kind of felt it was unnecessary to have the other Rangers in the cockpit with her, just because, like, they were brought in, and except for Javi, they're all kind of useless and still out of it, and I thought it would have been cool to see her just piloting it solo. But she gets to debut the Zord and the armor, and then when she was first confused, like, how do I do this with everyone's loopy, I thought she was going to use the code from last episode, because I forgot to mention in the last episode review how Zato has, like, a code override if Solon can't be there at the base to activate the Zords, which is Zato is cool, which, this is total nitpicky, but I mean, how would the expression cool be around 65 million years ago? I mean, I guess the Ice Age. I thought she was going to use that, but it was super cool to see her. There we go, super cool, using that prehistoric slang. It was just really cool to see her actually debut that. It was such a nice surprise, and I really loved that a lot. And then we kind of resolved the thing with her and Pop Pop at the end, and you know, we have a kind of comedic bit with the air conditioning causing a freeze and a snowball fight, which was kind of silly. But overall, I really liked this episode. Like, it ended up being better than I thought, like I said. The stuff with Pop Pop and Amelia was kind of nice because it wasn't just one way or the other. You could see both points of view. It actually had some significant reveals about their past, which could come back in the series later, which I think will be really interesting. I really liked Amelia getting to debut the armor and the Zord. Like I said, it was nice female focused, but it was also unexpected from what you see from the Sentai, which I just really dug a lot. And it kind of gave us a more significant episode to end off. Maybe not quite as good of a mid-season finale as 8, in terms of 8 had the big stuff with the Morphin Masters and Mick, and the possible hinting at the Gold Ranger with the ocean thing. But this still made a solid sort of mid-season finale. And as far as the 3 episodes go overall, like, none of them were huge episodes. I mean, I guess 11 was pretty decent, but I mean, they were all a little bit more fillery, but I still found them to be enjoyable. And what I liked about them is even when they were more fillery, it felt like there was always a little bit something happening. And also, I'm gonna be honest, maybe a hot take, but I'm actually really glad that Gold didn't show up in these episodes, because as I mentioned in the preview clips, I kind of wanted to see them wait so we can kind of sit on this dynamic of our core Rangers for a little bit longer, because I miss when 6 Rangers debuted a little bit later, and I kind of like that we're gonna wait a little bit, and it makes it feel like the core team lasts a little bit longer. But this episode I thought was unexpectedly solid. For episode 11, I would give it a 4 out of 5. But what did you guys think of these 3 episodes? What was your favorite? What did you think about some of the developments? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.